here today to talk about product-driven growth. I think I could have come up with a maybe sexier title now that I'm looking at that. But I wanted to start first with a question. And that's, so the other thing you'll see is my designer did not have time to properly design my slide, so I have compensated with Bitmojis of me in a top hat. So you'll see these throughout the slide deck. But there are over 1.35 million tech startups launched each and every year, which is an incredible amount of companies. And a really jaw-dropping stat is if a company doesn't grow in excess of 20% year on year, there's about a 92% chance that it actually won't exist in a couple of years, right? We have to grow in excess of that 20% to actually be relevant. And that means there is an incredible amount of competition for new users, for new leads. So the competition is really getting fiercer for growth. And it's actually being controlled by a smaller number of algorithms, like platforms, in the shape of Google or Facebook. If you're a SaaS company today and you need to generate mass amounts of leads or you need to generate mass amounts of users to sustain your growth, there's actually very few platforms that give you access to that kind of sustainable type of growth. Facebook has more monthly active users today, well, maybe not today, maybe 7 days ago, than the entire internet had in 2010. Right? That's just an insane number. And when they need to make changes to their algorithm, so recently they changed their algorithm, may change it many more times in the future, to show you more content from friends and families versus showing you more content from brands, that impacts other companies' growth, companies who are dependent upon Facebook to create leads, create users. That change resulted in 50 million fewer hours being spent on Facebook each and every day. That's going to increase the cost per click for advertisers. It's going to reduce the amount of time people see their actual content. Google update their algorithm many times throughout the year, right? Many times. And each time they update their algorithm, again, they impact other companies' growth, companies who are dependent upon Google for organic traffic. One thing Google are doing a better job of is giving you the answers in their search result pages, so you never have to leave actual Google to get that answer. So you'll see a lot of featured snippets appearing above these search results pages. And when you see a result like this, all of the other links within Google get 30% less traffic. Now, that's a huge amount, that's a huge decrease. In HubSpot, we have invested a lot of time and energy in owning that top box. You can see here we have a top listing, and we also have the feature snippet. We're about to do a record number in organic traffic this month because of the things we've done around owning that space. So there's less channels, there's more competition, and it means there's channel saturation. Right? This is just getting harder. And the other thing we have is our competitors are getting smarter and faster. So Andrew Chen, who is one of the best people out there in growth, leads a team for Uber, wrote a really great article around how growth is getting harder because our competitors are not only better, but all of us have access to better tools. We have better marketing tools, we have better sales tools, we have better tools to be able to do our job. So the bar to growth is getting higher. And that's why the future is kind of belongs to these product-driven companies. And what do we mean by product-driven companies? Well, they're companies who use in-product levers in partnership or instead of their external marketing and sales channels. They're able to grow through letting users use their product for free, extract value before you ever have to pay them $1, which widens their top of their funnel and increases virality, both through word of mouth and engineered virality. And in a world where there's a decreasing number of platforms from which we can all grow from, the number one way in which you can outgrow competitors is through your product. For HubSpot in the past 24 months, I've been working on our freemium business and making freemium a core part of how HubSpot now go to market. So we have a free CRM, we have free marketing and sales and customer hubs. You can use all of these things for free before you ever have to pay us $1. And the things that I'm going to talk about are some of the learnings we've had in making this happen. The first thing you need to think through when you are creating a product-driven strategy is, what is your product channel fit? Right? There are 3 core phases to being successful in a SaaS business or having a successful product. And the first one, I think we all probably understand, it's product market fit. I create a product that solves a problem for a certain cohort of users. Some of those users actually stick around, so my retention curve starts to flatten out. Some of those users like my product enough to tell other people about that product, so my NPS is semi-positive. But the other one that's really important is this idea of product channel fit, and that I've found a couple of sustainable channels through which I can actually grow. I can create a sustainable number of leads, I can create a sustainable number of users. Most successful SaaS companies are successful because they've dominated one or two channels within their market, and they usually call them their golden channels. And then the third one is, when we are all having a pretty good time, when people are paying us money, our NPS is really positive, you just want to invest and go faster. And Brian Balfour has a really great comment on product channel fit, where he says products are built to fit with channels. Channels do not mold to products that are built to fit with channels. Channels do not mold to products, which means you need to think about how you create growth through your product as part of your product roadmap. So let's say, for example, we wanted to create our product with the algorithms in mind. How can we extract growth from these different algorithms? And so if we wanted to extract growth from Google, how could we do that? One of my favorite examples from a company who did this was Rap Genius. Being from a small rural town in Donegal, I obviously have an affinity to hip-hop music. I'm a huge hip-hop fan. Rap Genius are a great example of a company who built with Google in mind. They weren't the first company to offer lyrics as a product, where you could go search for lyrics to your favorite rap song and get those answers. But they were a company who built with Google in mind when they created a feature that allowed you to annotate or highlight the different lyrics and provide commentary on what those lyrics meant. And by doing that, what they created was a user content-generated loop, right? If you think about how this works, I go to Rap Genius, I can highlight all of these different lyrics, I then add commentary about what those lyrics means, making my pages more enriched than my competitors' pages. That means my pages start to rank even better in Google. They're now called genius.com. I acquire more users who enrich my web page further, and the loop continues. And that's how Rap Genius managed to become the third biggest lyric site on the internet. We branded to genius.com, got a bunch of investment because they built with that extraction from Google in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is at certain points, the platforms become your competitors. We mentioned this at the start. The unfortunate thing for genius.com is now Google have decided to just give you the lyrics in the search results pages. You never have to leave Google to actually get that answer. So I'm not sure how they're going to figure that part out. But the advantage Rap Genius had was people were actually searching for their product, right? Their product was lyrics. There was a lot of demand for their actual product. So what can you do when there isn't a lot of search demand for your product or direct search demand for your product on these platforms? Well, you can get creative, right? You can get really creative about how you create these side doors into your product. One of the best examples of this is Pandadoc. So Pandadoc offer an all-in-one software platform, or all-in-one document management software. And there is about 3,500 people a month searching for this. So some amount of demand, but not enough demand that's going to sustain their growth in any kind of meaningful way. And the other thing for software vendors to realize is Google is now starting to take up a lot of that space itself. So when you actually search for different software, Google is going to present this carousel that allows people to figure out what software they're looking for without, again, ever having to leave Google. You should definitely keep an eye on this. They're going to get more aggressive with this. But what Pandadoc did was they got creative, and they created a range of business templates that you could use within their product, which allowed them to broaden the amount of key phrases they would rank for, not just keywords relevant to their actual product. So they created these libraries. They used SEO tactics that I do not have enough time to go into today to get them to rank in Google, but things like good internal site architecture, good internal link navigation. You can see I've kind of circled it at the top, driving high authority links into how they've clustered all of their content together, and that distributes that authority amongst all of these different templates. And each of the different templates allows you to get that template within Pandadoc and start to use it straight away. The other cool thing about this was they're creating templates. It's a space where all of their other competitors are trying to compete for that key phrase document management software, whereas Pandadoc are off creating all of these templates, ranking for different keywords where their competitors are not even going to be active. And this has really worked. When you look through how Pandadoc acquire so much traffic, it's coming from all of these different templates, right? Because they've managed to broaden the amounts of key phrases they can rank for and create many different paths for you to actually sign up for their software through Google. And that's how they've molded their product to that channel. And the other thing I love about this, if you are going to do acquisition, you want to try to find things that are scalable, right? That you can continue to scale and continue to work. So they just continually launch many different types of these templates, and each time they launch a template, they acquire more links, their domain authority increases, it just gets easier to do. Zapier, so hands up who has used Zapier, and like everyone uses this product, it is a great, great product. It connects one app to another app that allows you to use them easily together. But no one is looking for that right on Google. No one is directly searching for that use case on Google. So how does Zapier create lots of demand from this platform? They do it by categorizing all of the different apps that are available in their software under different types of intent. And they create many different side doors, again, into their software. So they have a blog where they can list all of these different apps, create the best of post, describe the app, describe why they think it should be in that category. And from there, you can kind of sign up to their product. They dominate that space, so they rank #1 for lots of key phrases like best note-taking app, like all of these different keywords. They rank really well for them. They can have a learning center where they can actually teach you how to use all of these different apps and then show you why you should actually integrate them with other apps and what are the advantages to those. So they can rank #1 for things like how to use Google Sheets. And then they have a apps directory. And again, it's just different ways that they've listed their product to Google. And they can review all of these different apps, and they can rank first, like keywords like cloud convert review, and go after the review space. And there's a ton of search traffic in that review space. So by molding their product to Google and categorizing things in many different ways, they can extract huge amounts of growth from Google. And if you actually go through how they've acquired traffic, you'll see this is how Zapier are actually scaling. The other thing Zapier do is, again, they mold their product to the channel. So even when they don't rank #1, this is best note-taking app, PC Mag rank #1, like who dominates all of the white space? Right? Zapier's post dominates all of the white space because they've used structured markup data within their blog post to help Google extract that information and build this feature snippet. Right, this is how you beat your competitors, by understanding the platform and how you can build into it. Integrations is another great way for your product to create its own demand. So many people, everyone probably knows the examples of companies like Quora or Pinterest. So Pinterest extract a lot of demand from Facebook. You could sign up for Facebook through sign up for Pinterest through Facebook in the early days, and that would allow you to be able to share Pinterest content to your Facebook friends and family, and a lot of those people would then, in turn, sign up to Pinterest. The other thing that integrations during the sign-up flow, the thing it solves is the problem that most freemium companies have is when I'm a user and I'm going in to use your product, there is not much for me to be able to do in there. There's not any real data. When you integrate during the sign-up flow, you can pull in data and you show the user the value of your product in a shorter amount of time. But there's also great growth to be had from just integrating with products that people use each and every day. So Grammarly and Loom are two of my favorite products. I use them every single day. Grammarly helps me not spell like a moron, have better grammar, and they have 6.9 million daily active users. The reason Grammarly grows so fast is when I'm in my email, when I'm in my Twitter, when I'm in my LinkedIn, when I'm in all of these different apps, I'm using Grammarly. It's part of how I use those tools. Loom allows me to create videos. I don't create emails, long emails anymore, and sit there typing long emails to my team. I just create Looms. Loom I can use through, when I'm in Google Docs or when I'm in Chrome, I can just use Loom. So integrating with popular apps is another great way for your product to actually scale. But the thing is, product-driven companies aren't just relying on other platforms for growth, right? They provide value first. They allow users to experience the product for free, and it widens the top of your funnel, creates virality. And there's, like, when I look at how I use LinkedIn, there's Grammarly, right? Just part of how I use LinkedIn. And if you're at any type of presentation where people are talking about virality, you have to go, oh, well, the examples are Dropbox, but it's 500 million registered users, just filed for an IPO, convert 2 of those into paid. They have a great business model, or Slack, 9 million weekly active users. And these are the 2 standard examples of companies that have both word-of-mouth virality and engineered virality, and this is how we are supposed to think of our SaaS app in terms of growth. And they're obviously outliers, but virality can't help to grow SaaS businesses over the long term for SaaS businesses that have user-facing features. And to give you an example that's probably not used too often within presentations is from EchoSign. So EchoSign were a company that allowed you to electronically sign for documents and send them to other people. So they had external-facing features, right, that allowed you to expose their product to non-EchoSign users by creating a branded link on those documents when you've signed them. And they had a very low viral coefficient, which meant that many, many, many documents had to be sent with those branded links before they would ever acquire a net new user into the product. So if I looked at this and I started to engineer virality into a SaaS app like EchoSign and said, well, in the first 3 months, it's not generating many users, I might just decide that that's not a good thing for me to do. But after 30 months, when they had acquired enough users, when they were sending enough documents, this virality started to be a real part of how they actually grew, started to sustain a lot of their growth. And again, the great thing about this, it's not dependent upon any channels. Like Facebook can do some crazy stuff, Google can change some crazy stuff. It's not going to affect these users that this company are actually acquiring. So when you think about acquisition, one of my things that I'm gold on is how many global users do I and my team acquire in a given month, and how many leads, global leads, do I and my team acquire on a given month. And that's really big numbers. And how we break that down is, what are the things that I need to do to be successful within the next month, within the next 3 months, and what are the channels I'm going to extract those numbers from. But how am I going to be successful in 2 years? So we are consistently running experiments to optimize all of our external-facing features. This is an example from our scheduling app. When you schedule a meeting with a non-HubSpot customer, you'll see it branded, and you can go sign up and start to use our scheduling app yourselves. And this is really working, right? This is how I'm going to grow in 24 months' time. And that's how I'm going to continually create sustainable users, regardless of how the algorithms change in the background. And you can also incentivize through referral mechanisms. So you can just pay for referrals. Like PayPal spent about $70 million in their early days just acquiring users by giving $20 away for every new account that was created. It was about 5 to 7% of their daily signups at some point. Or you can do something more kind of product-driven. So Loom have a great example where they offer their free users paid features, so you can actually use their paid features for free if you refer people into the product. Again, a great way for the product to sustain its own growth. Okay, so a little bit behind time. So when you've started to acquire people, the thing you really need to do then is actually keep them around using your product and get them to pay you some money. So for product-driven companies, like, every user is valuable, right? So we know that getting users, the competition is fierce. It's why most companies have a North Star metric, which tells them if the number of people getting value from their product is actually growing over time. So for example, in HubSpot, the way we measure our success is actually weekly active teams, WATs. We know through the data we look at that the more people we have using our product, or the more teams we have using our product each and every week, the better our retention is going to be, the more money we're going to make. At Facebook, it's daily active users. At Lyft, it's probably something like weekly rides. And the growth of WATs, so your North Star metric, it's really a long-term goal, right? It's an output metric. It's a scoreboard. It tells me if I'm winning or losing. So when I sit down and I'm going, how do I increase the amount of WATs, weekly active teams, I need to generate over the next month, it's a too broad metric for me to actually get good ideas around, to run good experiments around. What we do in HubSpot is we break our output metric into inputs, things that we can actually get good clarity around in terms of ideas, in terms of experiments, and get immediate feedback on in terms of if they're successful or not. Because your output metric tends to be a lagging indicator of success. It takes a while to see it, if it starts to trend up or down. So an example is we can break our WATs, our weekly active teams of our platform, into different inputs. I know if more people import their data, take their data from their platform or from their spreadsheet into our platform, we're going to get more watts. I know if they close more deals through our platform by using our CRM and sales teams, I'm going to get more watts. But I can break that into another level of inputs. I know if I can get more people to connect their inbox, or I can get more people to discover our import tutorials and see how easy it is for you to start using HubSpot and import your data from your current platform. More people import their data, I'll get more watts. If I can get more people to send our email template tool and email templates to their prospects and to use our scheduling app to book meetings, I'm going to get more deals closed, or they are going to get more deals closed, and I'm going to generate more watts. This is how we create inputs to be able to experiment against and get immediate feedback in terms of, are we being successful or are we failing? Do we know what's going to move that output metric? This is a kind of random example, but I love it so much I just stuck it in. So you can see Airtable understand what their inputs to their output is, and they incentivize users to take those actions. So when I invite someone into Airtable, I get a $10 credit off the paid product. When I download their mobile, I get a $2 credit towards the paid product. So they're incentivizing me to take actions which clearly correlate to me upgrading and discounting that tool for me. But your North Star metric tells you, are people engaging with your product over the long term? We also want to focus on monetization. So in HubSpot, when I first joined the freemium side of the business 24 months ago, we spent a lot of our time figuring out what we call our product qualified lead playbook, which is how we created demand from within the product. So demand created from within the product itself is now a huge portion of our revenue. And we categorized our product qualified leads into 3 different buckets. Hand-raised product qualified leads, which are people who would raise their hand within the product through different call actions, which I'm going to give you an example of. Usage PQLs, which are people who could use parts of our product for free, would hit a limit, and then would upgrade to pay us money. And then upgrade PQLs, which were people who would find a feature that they couldn't use as part of the freemium tier, would upgrade to pay us money. And because it's product-driven growth, which actually works, our usage PQLs were our best converting product qualified leads, allowing people to actually use our product for free, extract value, always converted them at a higher rate than any of these other things. We're pretty scientific in how we did this, so this is a mock-up, but we broke every PQL point out into its own funnel within our product. So we maybe had over 100 different PQL points. And I could see the product, the PQL category it belonged to. I can see how many times people interacted with that different PQL. I could see how much closed revenue we got back from that product qualified lead. I could see the conversion rate. I could see the total MRR, and I could see the average selling price. By doing this, we were able to bucket our experiments or stack rank the experiments we wanted to run against our different PQL points based upon the potential impact they could have to the company on revenue, because I understood the amount of revenue we were generating and how easy it was for us to actually implement them. And because when you first start doing growth, when we first started doing our freemium, we really wanted to start at the bottom of this kind of growth experiment tree that I expertly mocked up myself using clip art. And we wanted to just double down on where the low-hanging fruit was. So we really chose hand-raised PQLs because there was potential and they were really easy for us to iterate on. So this is one of our very first experiments we ran 2 years ago, where we took a cohort of users within the product who had indicated they were using a spreadsheet prior to signing up for our free CRM. And we showed this call to action at points within the product where we could see there was friction, asking did they want to reach out and actually talk to someone to get set up in the free product. Really simplistic experiment. This became one of our most popular PQL points for 3 months, generated a ton of money. Now we've evolved, we don't have call to actions in the product anymore, we've evolved this, which I'm going to show you in a couple of slides. But when you kind of extract that low-hanging fruit, what ends up happening is you're like, oh, well, I need to move further up this tree. I need the help of PM and engineers to change my in-product experience to create more money. And that's exactly what we did. So when you triggered a PQL within HubSpot, you would see this modal on the left. You could talk to someone from sales, or you could upgrade through a touchless buy-in motion. And what we wanted to experiment was the ways that you communicate with us within the product. So we wanted you to be able to schedule a meeting with a sales rep. So we had to rotate the lead. We had to rotate that person in the background to a sales rep and then provide a personal calendar. So you could book time in that rep's calendar. We had a call now function, so you could reach out and call someone, and we wanted to have a live chat function. This required a lot of help from PMs and engineers, but it was worth it, right? So we managed to increase our conversion rate by 50% by experimenting with the different call actions in terms of how people interact with us. The one caveat I would say about this is that most growth teams are taught to really obsess about minimal viable versions of things, minimal viable tests. Don't invest a lot of resources before you actually roll something out. The important thing to realize about minimal viable tests is you have to hit a certain bar for minimal for the experience to validate the test. So a good example was our live chat experience. The first time we ran this, we did minimal viable, and the minimal experience was so bad it wasn't a good test because it didn't actually, tell us what the result would be if the experience was good for the user. The experience was clunky. We didn't have enough people to man the live chat, so the test kind of sucked. The results sucked the first time we ran it. So we could have threw out the idea, but instead we had belief that this would work, and we just doubled down, invested more resources to make a better experience, and that's how we got to that 50%. And when you find somewhere where you can see that there's real upside, when you can see that there's real potential, you want to double down and continually to iterate on it. So we continually iterated on this experience. We could see that when people scheduled a meeting, initially they would hit that button, they would fill out a form, they would get a kickback email from the rep, so it would be rotated to a rep in the background. And in that kickback email, you got a personal calendar link, and you could book time in the rep's calendar. So in the freemium world, all of our reps just get meetings booked automatically. They don't have to do any prospecting. They come in a day, and they have a full calendar for meetings that we're booking for them. But we could see a huge drop-off from people who scheduled a meeting, filled out the form, and then never looked at the kickback email with that calendar link. So we coded it up within the app that you could just book time with a rep right in the app. So when you hit that button, we would round robin it to a rep, give you their personal calendar, using our meeting app within the product, and you could book time there and then. That's another 20% we managed to increase. So overall, 70% across all of our different PQLs. And then the last thing we did was when you gather all of this information, you can really start to experiment with the actual go-to-market. Right? You can run bigger experiments, but not to this point. You need to really learn and gather information from these different experiments and continually move up the tree to when you actually want to kind of pivot and change your go-to-market. So this is an example of how we put all of these learnings together. So this was a chart that I drew for an exec team where I said, hey, there's certain people that just need additional help. Maybe they haven't used a CRM before, or sales tools before, or marketing tools, so they just encounter more friction. You can remember that from the very first experiment I ran, that little call to action. Hey, we know they love interacting with us through live chat, right? The previous experiment I told you, we could actually see that when people just live chatted with us, their conversion rate was 3 times higher than any other communication they did with us. Why don't we do something like when someone signs up, they go through our touchless product onboarding, they encounter friction, we could pop open a live chat and connect them with what we call user success coaches. And the user success coach is only motivated to get that person active on the product and remove that point of friction. We would arm these user success coaches with other usage actions that correlated to that person becoming a happy HubSpot customer. So we knew that these usage actions would show them the value of our product, and they would usually upgrade at a higher rate, retain at a better rate. So not only could they remove the friction, they could then introduce them to the usage actions that we knew were valuable to them. And then the other cool thing was they could continually give feedback to our engineering team, and we can continually engineer out those points of friction. So we ran this. This was a complicated experiment, but this is now a core part of our go-to-market. We have a whole user success coach team. And over time, what we know we'll see is the number of people who are onboarding through a human interaction into our products, which means they had to live chat because they had a point of friction, will decrease. And the number of people who are going through touchless onboarding, never had to talk to a human being, will actually increase. So that is my slides. I think I'm right on time. If you want the deck, you can kind of sign up here. There's a newsletter that I have that gives you the best articles each month with expert commentary from people in my network. And I will send you the slides if you also sign up today. So I think that is me finished. I think there's questions. Oh, there are questions. OK, time for questions. OK, I have time for questions. So how do you prove and get investment? And let me just see. How do you prove and get investment and buy-in for new experiments? OK, so this comes back to it's hard. It depends on the experiments. So it comes back to why you choose the easiest experiments first is because you need trust with both your exec team, you need trust with your product, your engineers. So the reason we picked the most easiest things to do, they may not have had the biggest upside in comparison to other things we could see, is because we knew to do the things we most wanted to do, we had to build up trust within the organization. And growth was kind of new, and freemium was kind of new to HubSpot back then, so we had to show that this stuff actually worked. And what people in HubSpot are motivated by are wins on the board. So the more wins we got on the board, the higher, the more we were able to go up that tree in terms of the complexity of experiments. Let me see. How do you know that a customer has friction? Can you give me some examples? So that's a really good question. So we ran regression analysis to look at the usage actions that correlated to people dropping out of the actual onboarding. So we could see that people would hit certain points within the product, and that when they hit those points, like less of those people would actually activate. So they were like a negative towards people actually activating on the product and becoming an active team. So how did I do it? I worked with the person I hired to do my product insights and got that information. They were the clever one in the background actually pulling the regression analysis to get the actions that positively correlated to someone activated and becoming a weekly active team, and also the ones that negatively correlated where they were really struggling. So I think that probably, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions I can take during the break? Thank you very much.